So, without further ado, we'll move on to the opening address of the afternoon, which we're ready to go, and it's Yossi, Sassi. Thank you. Thank you.
So, thank you, John. Good afternoon, everybody. And hopefully you are feeling full and not hungry, because we have quite a lot to show you this afternoon. And today I'm going to speak about the duality in the Windows living off the land reality, especially of remote management tools. We're going to cover quite a lot. That context is all that matters for both the defenders and attackers. First of all, I would like to ask you if you are more of, you see yourself more of a red teamer or offensive guy. Can you raise your hand, please? Okay. Quite a few here. How many of you see there's more as a blue teamer, defenders? Okay, cool. So that's good, because it's fairly equal, and we have content for both in this session. So a bit about myself. I've been with computers for a while, about the 4th decade, running from early OpenVMS, Unix BSD, Novell NetWare, and then discovered Microsoft's environment and even worked for Microsoft for a period. But been doing information security and hacking all this time. I'm co-founder of Tenroot Cybersecurity, hailing from Tel Aviv, Israel. I've been around a lot with Active Directory. I'm the Active Directory guy. Also part of Javelin Networks, acquired by Symantec, doing deception solution for Active Directory. But all in all, I try to balance my time also with playing music, inventing musical instruments, flying planes. I love how the world looks from above. We'll be talking about the living off the land mindset, as I said. Well, I'll give you some example of that. There'll be a lot of demos, mostly recorded, and some live ones. We'll talk from IPC, inter-process communications, RDP attacks, through WinRM, PowerShell remoting, etc., which will have some unique focus on that. We'll also touch about short research about how to expose credentials from network connections that don't have NTLM secrets in LSAS, and still we extract full TGTs from them. Then we'll show very quick tips about how to prevent lateral movement without product that costs money. So in the tools of the living of the land mindset, the only question you should ask yourself really is this an admin or an attacker? And the only thing really that differentiates an adversary with your IT guys is if it's a remote management tool or lateral movement, is really the context, the intention behind the actions, and of course a lot of other parameters that we can measure and try to figure out. But there are multiple living off the land binaries, right, that we can use, and probably you know of. There is of course this 30 plus years RPC, Microsoft RPC, that extends to WMI and distributed COM. There is the huge API heaven for attackers, and specifically we'll talk in a bit about inter-process communications. Of course, ransomware deployment protocol, which we all know, and Windows remote management, which has been with us since Windows Vista onwards. And let's kick off with RPC. Windows cannot live without RPC. As you know, it's a system service, and normally people think about it as something that has to do with remote management, but if you look at the definition, and I encourage you to read it, it's data exchange and invocation of functionality that is located in a different process. You see that there is nothing here about remoting, and there's nothing that says something about a machine that is not the machine you're running from. So if you look at this definition, data exchange, exfiltrating data, which is good, invocation of functionality, command and control, you see the malicious potential in that, and a different process means that the process can be on my machine, on a different machine, or a different network altogether, and really the RPC subsystem runs the show, and your Windows operating system cannot live without RPC. I don't know if you tried recently to enumerate the dependencies of the RPC subsystem. This is on a recent Windows 10 build operating system. It has roughly 300 services all together, and you can see that more than 2/3 of it, like more than 200, depend on RPC subsystem. So if we take IPC, inter-process communication, this mechanism rides SMB, and it actually allows you to pass strings, objects, whatever you want, between local and remote processes using named pipes. Now, named pipes in Windows, they behave a bit different than the Linux, Unix realms, but essentially you can communicate between local and remote processes, and even on a PowerShell run space or whatever you like, one-way, two-way, encrypted, you choose all those properties, and you can do that with a one-liner when it comes to PowerShell. And the beauty about doing a named pipe command and control to exfiltrate data is that you don't need socket binding. You don't need admin privileges because you don't need to open firewall ports or anything. Because SMB is normally enabled and running, you just ride the 445 port. So let's see that in action. So as I promised you, it's just one line. So on the victim machine, we're running this as the client stream, right? And as you can see here, I'm connecting to the local host, the dot. And all I'm doing is just running this reader, this stream reader, and you see invoke expression for the dollar data. Now I'll be running from a different process on the same machine, and I just created the server stream pipe. And when I write into that pipe, of course, it gets executed on the client pipe. That's it. It's just a one-liner. It's very, very hard for endpoint protection systems to identify that because as we speak, in every Windows operating systems, there are hundreds of named pipes. You actually need it. It's sort of, you know, like copy-paste. The operating system needs it to really work. And it's very easy to convert this one-liner to a reverse shell in a way, to just execute on a remote machine. I just changed, as you see, here, instead of the local host, I changed it to an IP address of a server, the command and control server. I don't need to open any port or anything. It just writes the normal 445. And here again, I just write into the stream, and anything I run, just execute on the other side. And as I promised, we're going to show some attacks and some mitigations on the same side, so everybody has to benefit. So detection, sadly, you don't have event tracing for Windows, essentially an event log built in the operating system for named pipes, but you need to create a file system mini filter driver. Luckily, there is already a GitHub project up on GitHub that you can actually use. By the way, all the slides will be on the Discord channel and also on the website of the event later, so just focus on seeing the presentations. You will get everything that's written here. So you can observe the name pipe also by monitoring kernel object handle provider, which is essentially you enable this category in group policies, but this is very noisy. It gives you event ID 4656. It's a lot of events. You can also use Sysmon. The XML configuration has the matching for pipe events. I love personally to monitor for SMB open files that have the prefix of a backslash and a one slash, which is essentially a main pipe coming from remote. Let's speak about the Windows favorite admin tool. Anybody here uses RDP? I guess, right? Quite everybody. This tool is really amazing. The amount of vulnerabilities that exist are really huge. We'll touch only about a few of them, and I'll demonstrate a couple. Of course, obviously, the brute force is there because it is possible, but there is a lot of options for man in the middle. We'll talk about that in a second. There is a couple of adversary tools here, like Ceph and PyRDP, and there is the potential for terminal server shadowing, that if you leave a disconnected RDP session, you can just take over it without knowing the password of the user. Let's start off with the first demo, which is the RDP man in the middle. So in this scenario, the minimum you get is net NTLM, essentially NTLM in its network form. You can also get clear text password by downgrading the session, of course, RC4, faking the certificate, the self-sign-in certificate, and attempting CRED SSP. And the beauty about this attack is that the victim is not aware of it at all. So we are running now on this Ubuntu machine, the tool, and the victim is connecting to some RDP server. You see already some action is happening on my other Linux machine. Now the victim is connecting. It just brings in the credentials. There's nothing to indicate for the victim that is under an attack or something. Now we're trying to downgrade the session using an RC4 cipher. And essentially, the next step would be to fake the certificate. Since normally on most networks, as you see, we got the net and TLM already. On most networks, not everybody creates proper certificates from a CA, from an enterprise CA or certificate authority. That's why this certificate means nothing. So you can create any certificate with the name of that server, and it will not be checked for integrity. And once we have that, you see once the attacker clicks on our fake certificate, which looks exactly the same, we also get the clear text password. So you can see on the other side, if you can notice, we have the clear text password, and we also have all the clipboard. So anything the victim is now typing, we can see in our session, and it continues to manage normally. So getting clear text password from RDP sessions is quite easy. You can actually also disable the network layer authentication, network level authentication. You can do that either through registry or a WMI function. I normally like to start with some on a segment level tools that do spoofing, relaying, like Inve, Responder, etc. And you can just do this change, just this command. It's more efficient and silent, and I think even quicker than methods like Mimikatz, dumping LSAS, etc. What about the mitigations for this specific attack? So here, there are a few mitigations. First of all, in group policy, we have some relevant mitigations proposed. First and foremost is the NLA, network level authentication, to be enabled. This will actually block only the RDP connections coming from non-authenticated, non-domain joined machines. So if an attacker connects a machine, you know, RJ45 to the wall, this will just block this attempt. It will not prevent the net and TLM getting the password and downgrading the session. It will just block the RDP and alert. It's something, but it's not a lot. So you will know there is an attack, but the attacker will get the credentials of the user. A better mitigation is actually enforcing server authentication for the client. This means you have to create, as you normally should create to your backup servers, Vim, vCenter, whatever, proper certificates and not the self-signed ones. This will actually disallow the connection because the certificate cannot be validated if you fake it, and you will get this a specific message. It will not prevent actually the password, which is still crazy, but you will get that. I want to show you the next demo, which is essentially a live demo, because we need a USB stick to do that. So first of all, we have a domain controller here, which I'm going to use to connect to this server in a second. So you see this server, SRV2. I'm now connected with a user, a local user, which is a local admin. And now the administrator of the domain also connects to this session. And you can see the RDP session is in progress. It will take some minutes. What I want to do is just connect to that remote server, as probably people will do and do most days. Soon we'll have this nice fellow joining to the party. This is just my way to grab a sort of PSExec, admin to system, everywhere I go. It's not that it will not work with PSExec or some other PowerShell code, etc. But just to use that. Bless you. And once the connection is done, you can see it's established. So we have an RDP session. And I will just open in this session command prompt, just do who am I, and here I'm, of course, as you see, the administrator. And I will just do what many do, which is disconnecting the session. Now, when I go to that server, now when I will write, now when I will look at the sessions, I see I have a disconnected session, and I will connect this in the meantime, because it will take some time. But as you can see, I have a disconnected session for the administrator, and I have an active session for my user. Why does it matter that I have a disconnected session? We'll see in a minute. So my rubber ducky, my bad USB, is already beginning to do its code. Normally, what this code does, I will explain to you. The only magic is that it uses Win APIs, right, from kernel 32 DLL. to essentially elevate the local admin to system and to get the proper privilege to just see all the sessions and to be able to take over that session. We'll give it a few seconds to finish. This is just, as you can see, it popped system shell, right? Now I don't need this USB anymore. But if we will look a bit further in this session, now I remind you that we have a disconnected session at ID 3. All we do is tscon and 3, boom, that's it. Now we are in the administrator session, okay? So we don't need to know password or anything. What's the mitigations here? The classics, of course, enforcing MFA and stuff. Doesn't work for this. As you see, you can be enabling MFA for privileged users and still it will take over because it's already authenticated and approved. It's just disconnected. You can, in general, rename the local seed. Also doesn't work for this attack. It works more for brute force, things like that. For external attacks, you could always change the RDP listening ports. Many adversaries try to connect to 3389. You'd be amazed if you just change the RDP port. It takes them time to understand what's going on, what's wrong, because they see the SPN and it should be working. And finally, about this last demo of the attack, just do not leave RDP sessions open. There are some GPOs that have to do with idle sessions and logging them off. They don't work for this. It's not exactly logging off disconnected sessions. You should have a local task that logs off at the end of the day idle sessions. And if you want to identify disconnected sessions in all your domain, you can use one of my scripts at GitHub. Everything I show you here now is already on my GitHub page that you can download and use. So this begs the question, to admin or not the admin? It's a very deep philosophical question, because if everything is so vulnerable, so there is a better way. You can perform remote management, everything we saw here, event log management, service management, even copy files without SMB open. Sound interesting. You can use all those things which has their vulnerabilities, or many tend to overlook partial remoting based on, of course, WinRM, Windows Remote Management, always encrypted in a domain environment with your TGS, has a single port, and does all of the above and much, much more. So WinRM, as you know, it's been with us since Windows Vista. For many of us, it means Windows 7. But it's working fairly simple. It has a web services management listener working with XML, essentially SOAP protocol. Once you have the permissions, the listener or port 5895 actually listens to incoming connections, then spans a new process, WSM prov host, web services provisioning host.exe, and gets you the functionality in the remote machine. What you can do with that as a defender or as a system guy, quite a lot. This gave me hope in Windows as a platform. Really, I was about to give up on Microsoft, but this is a really cool tool. So in this example, I'm taking just all the computers of the domain. I have only 4, but what I will do now is I will run a command, a very simple command. For example, I want to collect all the ipconfig settings from all the domain PCs. So normally you would maybe do SCCM or whatever or other things, but if you don't have or you want to do it now. So you just invoke command to that list of computers, ipconfig/all as job. Once you do the parameter as job, it keeps the results in memory in my machine, and I can look at them later. So later I can just get all the jobs, do receive jobs, and I can also obviously see all the results, and I can also save it to a file, blah, blah, blah. So, right? So it's really, really useful, right, for admins. You can also do a lot of things with that session. We don't have time to show you all, but you can copy to, from session. You can actually copy files with SMB closed on a single port, encrypted. It's really a beautiful thing of technology. One of the more beautiful things when it comes to security is partial remoting utilizing WinRM can actually utilize partial session configurations And if you're not aware about just enough administration or just enough access, this really gives you a secure, constrained remote access, because it can enable very specific configurations. For example, in this demonstration, I'm connecting to this machine, LonCL1, and as you can see, I can do any command I want. It's essentially WinRM, of course, partial remoting gives you interactive shell, a remote shell that runs everything locally. You can see I have here almost 3,000 commands that I can use. But I don't want to give this a very wide set of functionality. I want to configure a secure connection that will limit it to very specific functionality. So I do again, I run enter PS session, but this time with a specific configuration designated to a specific user. So if you connect with this specific user, in this case Adam, and to this configuration that are pre-created, you can see, again, I connected, but now it doesn't know what is ipconfig. And even if I write correctly, shutdown exit, it doesn't know this command, which is interesting. But if I look at get command, which is the command that shows me all I have available, as you can see, I have very, very limited set of commands. I can limit it to specific commands, specific functions, to specific values of parameters. As you can see, start service, I limited only to audio service and things like that. So if I try to, you know, just start beats or things like that, DHCP, the session doesn't have it. So you can map and hunt web services management sessions. EDRs are beginning to give more attention to them throughout the years. I remind you, it's not PowerShell exe, it's essentially WSM of host exe, web services management provisioning host that runs the show on remote sessions. You can have specific indications on event logs, right? On the client machine connecting, you'll have event ID 6 on the WinRM operational log, and on the destination, you'll have WinRM event ID 91. But you can also try my get remote PS session script, which gives you real-time information about open PowerShell, remote PowerShell sessions in your network. It shows you who connected from where, what is the IPN name, and how long it's been connected, and what was the idle time, when it last ran commands. Finally, I want, to the next topic. I want to show you something about remote credentials. Not too many are, I'm not sure that many know how credentials are behaving in memory at the destination. When you connect remotely using different tools, remote registry, PSExec, NetUse, etc., not everybody knows if the username, password, or the NTLM hash, etc., are exposed on the other side. So it's important to do that. I used to prepare this type of tables to my customers all the time and to test them in production. And I did quite a research about that. And then just a year ago or so, Microsoft released a really nice table. So finally I said, yeah, Microsoft is doing it right. And it shows the reusable credential to destination. And then I looked at PowerShell WinRM, logon type network, right? Logon type 3, which means there is no exposed credentials in the destination. And I thought to myself, it's true, but are there no exposed credentials? I'm not sure. So let's see if we can get a full TGT for a privileged user from a network session without any Elsa secrets. How about using the process token, right? So here I'm connected to client machine, LonCL1. Imagine I'm an attacker and I have some foothold control of this machine. I look at what users are logged in at the moment. I see Adam, I see Kai, but not administrator, right? I'm user Adam. Say I have a local admin rights. And now I connect, I move to the domain controller. From the domain controller, the administrator is connecting to manage this machine or run some commands or whatever. So now, if I will look again to the process list, you can see I have a process of the domain administrator, which is cool, right? What normally you would try to do to dump and do pass the hash, etc. Mimikatz, right? So let's run Mimikatz, and we dump the credentials, and we feel very happy because as an attacker, that's something we value. And I also dump the results to a log to make it easier for you to see that the results actually do not contain the administrator hash. voila, Microsoft is right. You know, maybe we should trust Microsoft documentation. Even if I do grep on this result, I see all the unique usernames. Administrator is not there. So there is no administrator secrets credentials in LSAS, but there is a process, and the process has a token. And if you know a bit Windows internals, the primary token, impersonation token, etc., I can actually use token duplication. I will show you two different ways, but this is the first one, a widely used PowerShell script, and I will take the process ID of the WinRM, the PowerShell remoting session, and as you can see, I am administrator. But now this is just a process. Will it work to the network? It does. So the moral of the story is do not trust Microsoft documentation. But just keep in mind, this is ref by PTR, reference by pointer, so the actual other session needs to work. You can actually work around that. You can hijack just the session key from that TGT or any other process and just inject it to that session. But wait, Microsoft has a mitigation for that. Ta-da! Microsoft has something called virtual accounts. I don't know if you played around with this. It's really powerful. So this time, I'm going to configure in the same client that we just tried to connect. I'm going to configure a role capabilities file for the PowerShell session configuration. And in this file, I've configured the option. It's just a text file, right? Run as virtual account equals true. What does this do? Let's see. So now, when I connect from the other machine, let's go back to it. And I will connect to the session, but this time I will connect to the secure configuration called SecureCon and use again the specific credential. So this time I'm connecting to a PS session configuration that is very specific and runs as virtual account. And if we go back to that machine, what this means, I will do again the token manipulation, the token duplication. I will take the process ID from that WSM Provost process, and you can see it's running WinRM VA3. It's not the domain user. It doesn't even have a seed that you can correspond to domain resources. If I try to ignore it and I still do the process duplication, this time I will do it with another tool, a research of one of our employees, kernel cactus. Essentially, this one works with kernel, but the other was in user mode, doesn't matter. It just duplicates the token from that process ID. And now you can see I got this token. So I feel happy, but what does this token give me? Absolutely nothing. And if I try to connect to the domain controller, of course, I will get access denied because this token is useless. Aha, but wait, there's more. As an adversary, we play cat and mouse. If I have a control of that machine and the configuration is locally on the machine, Microsoft made the configuration as a text file. So I can just edit the text file and write $false. Aha, but wait, there's more. If you're a defender, you can actually monitor for file configuration changes. You can monitor the hash change, right? You are smart. You won't leave it like that. And this is normally the response that you will do all this just to protect those monitor and change configurations. Just fun. In case you want to bypass all Microsoft defenses, PowerShell transcripts, event log, everything that Microsoft has amazing things to offer, but we thought about it. So some time ago, Omer Yair and team, including myself, we did in VisiShell. It's up on GitHub. The less severe version of it is public. You don't even need administrator privileges, and it bypasses all PowerShell defenses using a simple CLR profiler and user mode hooks. Finally, I will ask you this. What if you want to prevent domain admins from logging on to workstations? What will you do? You can buy tools of PIM-PAM, all these companies that do jump servers. You can maybe use group policy to restrict access, log on as a batch, log on as a whatever. But what about this very simple tick box logon restrictions, logon workstations. So look at this, it's really a small magic, but if you work properly with privileged access workstations, essentially shielded VMs or any jump server you create without third party, even if you don't have VDR, no segmentation, no firewall, no MFA, nothing, you still prevent lateral movement. So in this case, we have an admin user. This admin is called ADP. As you can see, he's a member of a local administrators group. And on the account, I limited him from the default that normally you see all computers. I limited him just to the domain controller and the machine called SRV2. This means that if I will come from this machine, lon CL1, right? And I will run past the hash, because I got the hash of that administrator. If I will run commands as this user, it automatically will fail. I am doing past the hash of the ADP user just in order to show you how it works against the network. Past the hash, as you know, it doesn't change the primary user token, but only the impersonation token for the network. So when I try to connect to the network, we use the ADP NTLM hash, but the user is not allowed to sign in. If I try to do psexec also to the domain controller, again, we see the user isn't allowed to sign in. And you will see again and again these annoying messages. Although the password, the NTLM hash is correct, there is no problem with that, and the pass the hash was successful, but you will not move laterally. If I add this machine, I whitelist it as an allowed logon to that account, as simple as that. It's just an attribute on the Active Directory. So you can see immediately from the same session, without having to log in or whatever, this will work. So this was the only limit, right? So you can buy expensive product or you can know your environment. But wait, what if I, as an attacker, craft the TGT to remove logon restrictions? You can actually do that with Impacket and things like that. You see where I'm going. There's nothing perfect in this life. So, sorry for the pace, but key takeaways. Please embrace the living off the land mentality. It's a mindset that will take you very long. Whether you're an offensive expert, a red teamer, or a defender, which is harder, you can learn a lot from that reality. Pay attention to how credentials are exposed in real life and not always trusting official vendor documentation, please. You just know knowledge can take you very far beyond documentation. Sometimes a single configuration can do much more than 6 figures expensive products, as you can see. And I have on my GitHub page a lot of scripts to also monitor that changes to make sure it's not drifted. Partial remoting rocks. It's just a super CLI, super remote shell that you can use, and just enough access is very effective. But be aware that PowerShell security features are by default not enabled almost at all. So, and it's very easy to bypass, not just with our tool InvisiShell that bypass all PowerShell defenses, but you know, downgrade attacks, PowerShell version 2. So please remove PowerShell version 2 from all kinds because it has no monitoring at all. There's a lot to know about that, but continuous monitoring can be effective. And feel free to check my GitHub page for all the tools and scripts you saw here and much more, also around other Microsoft products. This is the link. And remember, at the end of the day, they're all just tools. They're not bad, they're not good. That part is up to you. Köszönöm. Köszönöm.